For us to take another look at the morning papers. Here with me reviewing them this morning are Bidisha Mamata and Edward Adu. So welcome back to both of you. And we're going inside the papers this hour, aren't we? We dealt with a few of the front pages at 6. But Edward, you kick us off. You've picked out a story in The Express reflecting on the expansion of the scrappage scheme that the Mayor of London is offering people.
ULEZ. Yes,
yeah, that's right, ULEZ.
So which is going to be kicking in a couple of weeks in London. Now, the Mayor Sadiq Khan, there's another incentive here for cars which don't comply with ULEZ. He's offered motorist drivers a £2,000 grant to scrap their vehicle. This is for vehicles that don't comply with ULEZ. Now, a lot of people are saying this is a con, including Howard Cox from Fairfield Fuel UK. He says a £2,000 grant doesn't touch the sides of the cost of an electric car. Now, as a Londoner, I've got an electric car. They're not cheap. You know, and for a hard-working Londoner who wants to get an electric car, that grant is not going to help with the contribution. Now, concerning ULEZ and the kind of infrastructure of transport in London, clearly there needs to be. I mean, I know that the Mayor has introduced this new Superloop express bus, which I think is kicked in with a couple of services, but it doesn't even touch the surface. I mean, for example, if somebody wants to get across from one part of London to another, they're not going to get all their tools and put it on the bus. And I think the practicalities of trying to address the issues around ULEZ, it's not just for Londoners, it's for people travelling out of London who will have to pay this £12.50 fee, which will come into effect on the 29th of August. So a lot of people are saying, well, look, Mayor Khan is reacting to this because obviously the result of the Uxbridge and South Ruislip by-election, which of course the Tories won a couple of weeks ago, the new MP Steve Tuckwell. What a lot of people be thinking, what else is the Mayor going to put to the table to try and address this and to make it more feasible for Londoners to get around?
Well, yes, and it is just London, so apologies if you don't live in London, but I guess there are other schemes being mooted in other parts of the country.
Well, a lot of people are saying if ULEZ works in London, then it's going to knock on the door and it's going to probably spread across the UK at some point.
Yeah. Bidisha, I don't know if you've got a view on this. And just to say that the Mayor of London is very keen to say that 90% of cars in these outer areas into which the scheme will be expanded are already compliant. And it's only cars and vans made after cars and vans made after 2006 that are okay. Diesel cars and vans made after 2015 and motorbikes after 2007. So quite a lot of cars are compliant. What do you make of the scrappage scheme? Does it make sense to you? Is this a scheme worth pursuing?
It is worth pursuing, but it's exactly what we just heard. This is a very busy working capital city that involves lots and lots of stakeholders. I absolutely believe that Sadiq Khan has a massive commitment towards making London eco-safe and eco-friendly and arming us for the future. We're doing all of this so that we actually have a planet, that we can have a capital city on where nobody's breathing in fumes, where we're not making the environment and public health worse. But of course, it's easy to talk in those very bold and extremely admirable headlines, and yet you've got millions indeed, of people from London or coming in from outside London who are going to fall into that small percentage that you mentioned, who will not be able to square the finances, who will not be able to square the irritation factor or the convenience factor. And some finessing is going to have to happen. And it may well be that small number of motorists end up paying more. I think what Sadiq Khan would ultimately say is we might all have to make these accommodations, both financial and practical, bearing in mind the greater good and the future. Of course, that doesn't help us in the day-to-day, but we're trying to sort of level up ecologically for the 22nd century of London's life.
Okay, and Bidisha, actually, we're going to come to you next with your first choice of story, and you've picked out a story in The Guardian about fertility treatment.
Yes, I'm very aware that this is a family breakfast show, so I won't go into exact gynecological detail here, but there's an interesting new home insemination kit scheme that's being run as a pilot with around 20 patients in South Fulham. Now, the NHS currently only funds IVF treatment, fully funded. That's in vitro fertilization, and home insemination is what it sounds like. You can find the details of that through your own Googling later on. But what's very interesting for women who want to become mums is we forget in the rush towards IVF that after all the rounds of IVF that you're allowed on the NHS, it has a 27% success rate. All those wonderful posters you see on the tube of families smiling together, they don't mention the exact proportion of success versus what this article mentions, which is the heartache, the hormonal intervention, the commitment. This home insemination kit trial has a 50% chance of success or satisfaction at the end of a number of rounds. So it's worth trying out. But it is a very, very tiny trial as it stands. It's just nice to know that some of the heartache of wanting to have a family, start a family, be a mum, is being thought of. It's not just you hit a barrier and that's the end of that. There are options, there are things to think about and to try.
Yeah, interesting to see how that trial goes as well. Edward, take us to another story in The Guardian, and this is about gig behaviour.
Yeah, I mean, usually when we go to a gig, everybody usually behaves themselves, but there seems to be a new trend now where people are getting either ratty or throwing things at artists. And this is a story concerning Cardi B in LA, where someone threw a bottle of water at Cardi B, and she reacted. Now, the case was pushed through the with, I think it was the LAPD, and I think it's been dropped. It's no longer going to be pursued, but this is not the first case. There are several cases where punters are getting erratic and throwing things at artists. And I literally had a brief chat about this with my mum yesterday. My mum hasn't been to a gig in years, and my mum simply said some of the people who do this, they're probably high. They're probably on something, and they're probably just behaving erratically. Now, it's scary. I mean, not just for musicians, but also for DJs. If this is going to be a new trend, as a DJ, I wouldn't want a punter to literally throw or love something at me, whilst I'm on stage or wherever. It's about respect, and I suppose it kills the whole element of the pure enjoyment, where you're supposed to be going to a gig to enjoy the talents of that particular artist, not to be throwing stuff at them. So I think the experts are concerned that, look, if this is a new trend, something needs to be done to clamp it down, because artists shouldn't be treated in that manner.
Yeah, and you're right. It is a worrying trend, isn't it? And you can see why artists are nervous about going on stage if that's going to happen. Let's hope it's one that goes away. Take us to the Mail next, Bidisha, and this is a story covering a murder trial.
This is completely and utterly astounding. All the headlines are going with the fact that one of the defendants is a former TikTok influencer, but it's really about a mother and a daughter who've been convicted with others of murdering two men, one of whom, the two murder victims, were both 21 years old. They were rammed off the road in a car occupied by the perpetrators and their friends and cronies. They died in a terrifying fireball. It emerged that this influencer's mother, who was in her 40s, was having an affair with one of the murder victims, and the murder victim himself had been blackmailing the mother with photographs of a sexual nature and footage of a sexual nature. He'd been trying to hold one over her about that. It's just jaw-dropping, the level of drama and deceit that is in this case. The jury deliberated for an extremely long time in returning these verdicts. And the cynical part of me as a journalist is reading all of this, reading the headlines and thinking, oh, I know what's going to happen next. There's going to be a streaming hit series about this called Bad Love, or, When TikTok Goes Wrong. I'm very disturbed by the sensationalist reporting around this, because it involves conspiracy to murder, not accident at all. The footage around this crime shows the perpetrators driving on after this fireball and then turning around and sort of driving back, and some of the perpetrators walking along the street as normal after all of this.
Okay, sorry to cut you short there, but we're out of time. Badisha and Edward, always good to chat to you, and you'll be back in an hour, so I'll get a chance to do that again. We'll see you then. Thanks very much indeed. Top story.